15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Wait a minute. I've heard that before. That's the note Jeremy wrote to me in my yearbook in the 6th grade. How'd you even know that?
Because it's from Geico.
Yeah, wait, here it is. Dear Luke, have a great summer. P.S. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. Love, Jeremy.
Geico's had this tagline for years, because we help save people money.
So wait, you're saying Jeremy copied you? Yeah, that actually does sound like something the J-Man would do.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychak. Welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychak. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing pretty good.
Well, you're feeling better than last week, is what you are, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the long COVID at this point.
The heck is the long COVID?
The long COVID is where your taste is still off. You still have a dull, kind of a little bit of a dull, dull headache. You're still a little bit in the fog. You don't really motivated. Just stuff like that. People don't talk about all the kind of the long-term effects of this COVID crap.
Yeah, right. Right. You're a long hauler.
Well, I'm not long. It's been 14 days, but I can tell you, I do not feel, 100%, not even close.
Yeah, you don't feel like yourself yet.
No.
But you will again.
The weird thing is, okay, so there's changes in your vision. Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
But if you actually talk to somebody who just got done with COVID, they're like, yeah, everything looks a little different. Like the colors aren't the same. The what you perceive as good looking or ugly is can be changed.
Wow.
You might love your kitchen floor, your whole life, and all of a sudden you get COVID and you go, what the hell?
This sucks. What was I thinking? Change it all.
But perceptions and everything from their sex life to, because I've been making a point of interviewing people because I'm finding the changes are a lot more different. Or the perceptions on everything. Yeah. It's the whole enchilada. It's not just, your taste. We all hear about the taste. Well, apply that taste thing to everything. There's changes. Trust me. There's no doubt. I even think, the big lack of the workforce is because of people's attitudes.
Could be.
COVID. Like it's like they're not motivated like they were.
They're just, do you think that maybe they've had somewhat of an epiphany thinking to themselves that survived a potentially life-threatening thing?
No, I don't think it's anything like that at all. Nothing. I think it's part of our evolution. Viruses obviously are responsible for all of our evolution. From apes to humans. I mean, we are due to viruses. No, I think it's a lot more than just a perception. I think there's physical changes. That do happen. I can honestly say everything in my home looks different even.
Wow, Doug.
Everything. But then I've been interviewing people and they're all agreeing with me, but they're not talking about it. Mm-hmm. They're like, God, yeah, you're right. Why does everything I look around, everything in my garage looks a little askew? The colors, as an example, you go to grab a tangerine. Well, tangerine to me in my mind was one color, and it was like a, an orange, whatever we all think is orange. But now it's a shade or two off. It's more
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back because I met other people that have had COVID. My wife had COVID. My oldest son had COVID. And my oldest son now, the only thing that really changed with him, and it's still dealing with it, was he lost his taste, and it's gone. My wife's taste has come back, and she says everything tastes like metal.
Stop right there. Okay. But that's not a loss of taste. If it tastes like metal, you haven't...
No, that's her. Yeah.
Yeah, but you haven't lost your taste. Your tastes have changed.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I've been doing is experimenting, going, well, what tastes good to me now? What tastes bad to me? And literally, pure foods still taste pretty good if they're pure. Like if you eat something that's, just like a piece of fruit.
But if you eat a Big Mac.
But if you eat like a very highly processed, you taste all of the chemicals as if they're like almost spraying into your mouth. Like coffee for people has been a big, a lot of people who didn't like coffee now love coffee, and people who love coffee hate coffee.
Gotcha.
So it's more of a shift versus a disappearance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense.
So I'm just trying to get people to think, and then everybody who's had COVID, start asking, start thinking a little bit different. It's more of a permanent change in my life. Is it temporary? Am I going to go back to the way I was? Not so sure.
Well, yeah. It's changed a lot of things, this COVID stuff.
So when I take a sip of coffee, which I love coffee, I take a sip of coffee now, all I taste are all these heavy metals and very, coffee is already bitter, but I taste like poisons.
Well, that's not good.
Toxic poisons. I'm not drinking this. This is full of toxins, and just bad stuff. You can just taste it.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
I don't know. Let's see what other examples. I'll bet you people's sex lives have changed. I'll bet less.
Did you ask those people?
Yeah.
If their sex lives have changed? And what did they say?
No interest. People are reporting zero interest in sex, or far less.
Well, are these married people or are these
people I know, just friends, and
yeah.
I mean, I'll have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 conversations a day, and I'll just say, hey, by the way, have you had COVID? Yeah. So let's talk about COVID for a while, and you start getting into them, and they're like, God, I've never thought of that, never thought of that, never thought of that.
Yeah.
And like a sense of smell, for instance. It is impossible in my mind to change your sense of smell without your sense of sight. I think they're tied together. I literally just got a text from a listener who said, my sense of smell has changed. And
yeah. I've heard that from a lot of people.
It isn't gone. It's just changed.
Yeah. Yeah, things are changing. See, I knock on wood. Here we go.
So I'm also predicting.
Haven't gotten it yet.
People will have a sense of change in what they enjoy doing. So I'm going to also predict there'll be permanent changes with people and what they use. What they did enjoy, they're not going to enjoy anymore. Maybe they're going to have new hobbies. So there's personality, I think permanent, personality changes.
It's kind of scary on one hand, though.
It is, because if this is an engineered bioweapon, what if they're so advanced and they put this thing in there to change for instance, make us all less motivated.
Right? Make us lazy is what you're saying.
Yeah,
the lazy bug.
That could affect the enemy big time.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just, a side effect. Who knows? I mean, we just don't know anything.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but being, not being motivated, but money is normally the motivator for me to go to work.
Yeah.
Personally, because I don't mind my job. I don't love my job. I don't mind it, but I also don't love it. Like, I could easily not do it anymore. And if the money was there for me not to do it, that wouldn't be a problem. Because money's always should be the motivator.
Well,
for most of us.
But yeah, a lot of people are kind of not motivated by money. Suddenly.
Well, yeah, but it's nice to, eat, and have a roof over your head, stuff like that. So
yeah, I know people that aren't even motivated to eat.
Yeah.
In other words, it's like they just don't give a shit.
Yeah, they just stop caring.
Stop caring.
Yeah, that's
or their values are different.
Yeah.
So what I'm proposing is a theory that COVID is changing people from the inside out.
Yeah, very well could be. It really could be.
I think that I have a feeling I'm going to get a lot of letters.
5-10 years from now, we'll really tell the tale.
It will if people take note. If you don't take note, if we don't collectively start communicating about it, all we're communicating about is the taste.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What about the eyesight?
Yeah.
What about
the other things? Yeah, the other quality of life things that are going on.
Yes. What about our values? What about, does COVID affect the way we treat other people?
Yeah.
We don't know, and we're not talking about it.
We don't know because for the longest time, the only thing that was really talked about COVID was the economy end of things, was how it was affecting the economy.
Exactly.
In the news cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
No one was ever really talking about the long symptoms. This is how it may change you.
Right.
You're right. It's always been about the money. Well, it's the money. We got to make sure this is going on and that's going on. And people aren't money. People are people. And if they're being affected in a paradigm shifting way.
There you go. That you just hit the nail on the head, Joel. Paradigm shifting.
And so things may not look the same.
I am now proposing to get into a phrase we can call the COVID paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
Because it's more than just taste.
Yeah. Well, it's taste in all levels.
Everything, correct.
So
will it affect taste. What we enjoy to watch on TV?
Right, exactly.
Energy.
Exactly. And will the people that never got COVID, which I'm sure there's eventually most people are going to get it. I know at some point I will probably get it. I have avoided it thus far, but at one point, chances are I'll have it.
Or are there different types? There's different types of COVID. And I swear I've had COVID before, but without the paradigm changes.
Yeah.
This is
maybe
time.
You could have COVID light the first time.
Right. We're actually feeling the effects.
Yeah. Where maybe the first time you had COVID was not the full adult dose.
Right.
And now you've had the full meal deal and it's really changing you in some regards.
It's almost like you're reborn, for better or for worse, is a different person.
Yeah.
Who was it that, I think it was Dave. I swear to God, it was Dave Schrader. He was like, well, how do you know you didn't die? And then you wake up, you're just a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you know you're not dead and this is the afterlife?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I hear
for instance, a guy died from carrots falling on him.
Okay.
Does that guy know he's dead?
I would assume they would figure something's amiss.
Well, how do you just
I've in my other interests I've dealt with that exact question. worked a case at one point where a guy was in his mid-40s, laid down, take a nap, had a massive aneurysm, otherwise healthy, died.
Yeah.
Didn't know he was dead.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, you always wonder. You hope to God you know when you're dead.
or when I talked to the cowboy Roy.
Yeah.
He didn't know he was
and
dead.
I've heard
evidently.
those same stories over and over where people have had conversations with somebody that they didn't know was dead.
Yeah.
Obviously, the person they were talking to didn't know they were dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it only works, I'm convinced it only works if both parties don't realize they're dead.
Yeah. Anyhow, guy really did. 34-year-old guy. He was buried under a large quantity of carrots. And he died at the scene. Well, that's enough said. That happened this week.
Man.
Damn, not a good day.
That is a bad way to go out.
Yep.
You know, especially if heaven or afterlife is a bit like, you know, what you hear prison's like, so what you in here for? You know, if you have to tell that tale. Well,
at some point you had a screwed up sense of what you should have done. And you got killed.
Yeah, I should have zigged.
The other one too, I read about people who are arrested all the time. So I was reading about this parent, right? So the 13-year-old kid's got COVID, and they're going to take him to a test. And I'm thinking, well, either this person had really was a smart parent or really dumb, but they put the kid in the trunk.
What? Oh, that's horrible.
They didn't want to catch their COVID. So went through this testing site. It was in Houston. They drove through the testing site. And of course, they go out and pop the trunk open so the kid can get tested. Well, then they, of course, arrested the parent. So now the parent's in jail.
Oh, well, as they should be.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but I'm also saying
I can't believe they do that.
You know, people have these little misfires of judgment.
I would say that was a big misfire.
But
hey, go grab Billy. I think he has COVID.
Joel, it was also smart because they're saying, you know, social distance. Well, you know. I mean, it wasn't like they put a baby in there. It was a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, but here's the deal. You still had to come in contact with the kid when you're throwing him in the trunk. Okay, so...
Well, no, you don't. You just pop the trunk open. You say, here, get in.
I'm not sure that there's any 13-year-old in the world
Joel,
that I know anyway.
I'm not defending the parent.
I know you're not.
I'm just saying, not. You know,
you're saying it was dumb and smart all at the same time. It rolled into one.
It's kind of, you know what I mean? I mean, who hasn't thought of that, you know?
Oh, good Lord.
They're just like, okay, I swear to God, too, even the news I'm reading has changed. So I was reading about, you know, and I was like, was this me? Some guy in the snowstorm, right? He must have been bored. Takes his e-bike, starts his e-bike up, takes off in a snowstorm in Queens, New York.
Yeah.
Drives directly to a traffic camera, pulls out his gun and starts emptying his gun at the traffic camera. And I'm thinking, well, this is a slight misjudgment in your
just a small
judgment in what you would normally do, because one, you're shooting into a camera, so they're going to be looking for you. And so they got, of course, a warrant out for this person's arrest.
Well, yeah, not every day. You know, a man, I'm assuming it's a guy, you said a guy,
but then you read it and you go, well, that sounds kind of fun.
That sounds like it might be a good time. Why did I not think of that?
And just, it's like, it's kind of...
You know, in a snowstorm on the e-bike. So, I mean, it takes balls, number one, to go on an e-bike in a snowstorm. Think on that for a minute.
Yeah, a little bit. Sure.
One wipeout and, you know, things could get really bad really quick.
Yeah.
You know, so this guy shows up.
Didn't you ever ride your bike in the snow? I remember I had a broken leg, Okay, I had a broken leg. And I remember I had a cast with the rubber, the rubber pad on the bottom.
Yep.
And I remember getting a call from my girlfriend going, hey, hey,
baby.
we're going to go up to the ice rink tonight. You want to?
Yeah, you want to come?
I'm thinking, hell yeah. So I get on my motorcycle in the wintertime in a snowstorm and drive on my motorcycle using your feet as outriggers. But, of course, one of my outriggers is broken already.
And wait a minute. And you're living in the Twin Cities at this point, right?
Yeah.
So you're in Minneapolis traffic on a motorcycle in the snow with a broken leg.
At 13, without a driver's license. Yeah.
At 13, all because you wanted to get to your girlfriend.
Correct. And I remember, the only thing I can remember about that girl, she always wore this really tasty peppermint lip chapstick.
Yeah.
And that's, anyhow. But I'm getting up
it
there
was
going,
young love, evidently.
Young stupidity. But see, that's a lack of judgment, like we just talked about.
That is a serious lack of maybe judgment and maybe parenting too, because when your parents should have been there going, hey, Doug, that's not a good idea. You're not doing that.
Yeah, you would think, but no, that never came up.
No, your mom never said, you're not doing this.
Nope.
You're like, what the hell? What do you mean? She's the one that handed me the helmet.
Yeah, exactly. A helmet? I don't think I had a helmet on.
Helmet? What's this you speak of?
I never had a helmet on.
Oh, damn, man. Damn. Oh, we got a great show on tap for everybody tonight. We have Tony Gerard is on the show tonight, and he's a cryptozoologist. He's got great credentials behind him. And he's got a couple degrees. One of them is in zoology. So that's going to be very interesting to talk with him. And another one's in biology. And
Tony's got probably, I'm sure, some cool inside stories. He used to do a lot of the reenactments, the historical reenactments for me, for Monster Quest.
Oh, very cool.
So he's a guy that's got skills. He was on both sides of the camera in more shows.
Oh, sure.
And people don't know that. I'm sure he's got some cool insider stories. We're hoping.
Yeah, that'd be cool to talk with him. Of course, that'll be in just a few minutes here after Doug and I talk about, the craziness of COVID and youth and snowstorms and unloading guns. And
did you read about the crash truck full of monkeys?
Yes, I did. One went missing.
A whole bunch went missing.
Yeah, but isn't there one still at large? Didn't they get the rest of them? There was still one at large.
But I'm thinking, this is another bunch of COVID monkeys.
Right. You know it. And you know what? Yeah. You're onto something there.
I think so. It had 100 monkeys in that truck. And I love how they say, well, the monkeys spilled. You don't spill monkeys, Joel. You do not spill monkeys.
Well, not generally. I mean, no one ever walks and they stop. Damn it, I just spilled my monkeys.
Yeah, exactly. Or just go walking down the road and all of a sudden you see monkeys everywhere and you go, oh my God, that guy spilled all those monkeys.
Look at all those monkeys. They're everywhere.
What the frickin'?
Right. Yeah.
Are we living?
Yeah, that's just not something you hear. So it might have been intentional.
So the CDC spilled their monkeys.
They did. Those are experimental monkeys. That is how they're going to spread the next pandemic.
You wonder.
Is by letting the monkeys out. No, I'm just kidding.
Then what are the chances of spilling your monkeys? So you have this truck, right, and it's full of obviously too many monkeys.
Yeah.
And then somehow that truck crashes. It's right out of a bad Stephen King movie.
It is, or a zombie flick. This is how it begins. Yeah. No, I hear you.
That's something I would have done if I would have driven the truck. I would have spilled all the monkeys.
You probably would have. You probably would have.
Those Doug. Monkeys.
He spilled all the monkeys there. They're everywhere now. And now we got to go collect all these monkeys. And gosh darn it, during a snowstorm. Where was he going anyway? Oh, to see a girl at the hockey rink? Oh.
Oh, my God. Okay. Then I'm reading about this guy, and I'm like, YouTuber creates world's first retractable lightsaber that can cut through steel. And I'm thinking, what could go wrong?
Yeah, right? Gee.
It's up to 5,000 degrees.
So he's got a lightsaber he made. I mean, what's it made out of? You know what? I wonder what it's made out of.
Well, he takes and he's got a bunch of obviously gases like hydrogen. And
yeah, and it probably obviously it's superheating things.
Plasma. Yeah, I mean, he's creating plasma, but oh my God, could you imagine a little slip of that thing?
Right? Your life be changing awfully quick with just one little slip.
That's way worse than spilling your monkeys.
That is way worse than spilling the monkeys. That is like maybe even losing a leg territory there.
Yeah.
That's craziness.
And you're like, you should get the parent with the kid in the trunk.
You should.
Truck full of monkeys.
Yep.
The guy with the e-bike.
Get them all together.
And the guy that got killed by the carrots. Get them all together in a room.
Right.
And just watch the fun.
Yeah, and just watch the hijinks ensue.
Yeah.
See what happens next.
You can't make this stuff up, Joel. It's just...
Well, have you noticed since COVID, though, our headlines have gotten a little bit crazier.
Oh, my God. They're just like... It just goes on and on and on. And you read stuff and you're like... okay, great. And then I go down and I scroll down and next thing I'm reading about a guy who is like dealing or making the world's largest cast iron skillet. And I'm thinking, yeah, it sounds like a perfect thing to me.
Yeah, but why? Why would you want to have
an 18-foot skillet, with a handle and 14,000 pounds of, so he could make a big piece of bacon? I don't know.
See, that's the thing. They've gone from wanting to work now to wasting our time with stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, I think, you could use the skillet and the lightsaber.
You could. No, okay.
No, actually,
maybe I spoke
that
too
wouldn't
soon.
work. No, the lightsaber would burn right through the skillet.
It would cut right through the skillet, and then the skillet would be done for.
Yep.
There's no winning on that one. Even if you create a skillet that big, how are you going to heat it? You got to create an equally big stovetop.
Yeah. Have you seen or taken note of giant objects? Just, when you're driving around the country or biggest ball of yarn, biggest ball of this, biggest corn huck, chuck.
Yep, I have.
Biggest this, biggest that, biggest pizza, like whatever.
Yep. Right. It's just those little local tourist traps,
yep.
Like when you're in South Dakota, you must see 10,000 billboards for wall drug. Stop a wall drug.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to the Big Muskie in Hayward?
I have.
It's like
it suckered me in.
Who just wakes up one day and goes, I'm going to build a giant 400-foot muskie.
Today is a good day for building a muskie. Yep, that's what I'm going to do.
I had to go there one time and do a story on that place.
Isn't that the Fishing Hall of Fame there too?
I did that for Care 11.
Yeah. So it must be kind of fun to do, though. Nice little field trip.
It was.
Yeah. Got you out. You're able to go look at the world's biggest muskie.
Yep.
And then the second question is, why does it exist? Exactly.
It was like eating butterscotch pudding over the Arctic. It's just one of those moments in my life. You go, just doesn't get any weirder.
How did I get here? Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, it's just one of those moments that you go, boy, did my life take a strange turn.
Oh my God. So that's the news.
That is it. That's the news. COVID changing people. You got world's largest skillets. You got kids in trunks. You got lightsabers. Boy, what else? You got monkeys on the lam. They're running around. God save the monkeys. They can't find one of them. And well, monkeys are dangerous as hell, by the way. They will rip your face off. They will flat out go crazy on you.
I just got a really interesting text, so hang on a second.
Oh, we gotta
basically said, I hope so-and-so is, I'm not going to say their name, but I hope so-and-so is listening because they have had this paradigm shift and they've been trying to explain it to everybody they know and no one is listening to them. So
interesting. We might just have to do a whole show one night just on that.
COVID paradigm.
How is this
we coined the phrase here, dude.
We did.
Yeah.
The COVID paradigm shift. All right, we're gonna run a break. Speaking of paradigm shifts, and we come back. We got Tony Gerard. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer, throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Highcheck. Hey, Doug, we got a little conference coming up in October, and you and I just heard who the speaker is going to be, didn't we? One of them.
Well, we heard about one, and that's
yes, just one of them.
Ken Gerard.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
I've also worked with quite a bit, and I don't think we've ever met either. So I'm hoping.
You have a trend going, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. The trend of not meeting people. and maybe it's because they don't want to meet you, Doug. I don't know, but we're going to get into that. But mark your calendar, second weekend of October. You're going to want to be there. Timber Lake Lodge. Again, this will be the third annual Minnesota Bigfoot conference. So it'll be the third year, so that'd be great, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So tickets will be going on sale. About March-ish is when we're looking at putting those tickets up for sale. So you're going to want to get those hotel rooms booked. You guys already know the drill to come to this conference and love it. So I'm expecting to see each and every one of you guys again and looking forward to seeing you guys again.
And then what are the dates again, Joel?
Second weekend. It's the second weekend of October. We're having Ken Gerard is going to be one of the speakers. He's the first one to be kind of in the boat now. We got many more that are going to be announced, but that's the first one announcing. Again, Timber Lake Lodge, Grand Rapids, Minnesota. That'd be the second weekend in October. Be there, be square. You're going to love it. It's always such a great time. Everyone that's been there always has such a blast. So it'll just be even that much better. Yeah, Abe does a bang-up job putting that thing on. Let me tell you. He really does. Because he has great talent like me there. So,
Yeah.
Just throwing that out. No, I'm kidding, of course. Anyhow, we got a great guest tonight. We have Tony. I cannot believe you guys have not met, by the way. That's still blowing my mind. But Tony Gerard on the show tonight. And I just found out through Doug that they've known each other for a long time. And it's kind of funny. They've never met, right? So we're going to get into that in a minute. But let me just talk a little bit about Tony. Let me talk him up here for a second. He was a cryptozoologist before it was even cool to be one of them. He read everything he could possibly get his hands on about Loch Ness, monster, Bigfoot, all kinds of other cryptids. He listened attentively to local old-timers as they told him about black panthers roaming the hills and swamps of western Kentucky, southern Illinois, where he grew up. He's also interested in the natural world, and it led him to pursue a degree in biology and later an advanced degree in zoology. My gosh, man, you are a smart man. For the number of years, he also was an investigator for the BFRO, and we could talk about that later if you'd like to. And also, he was on a little show that you guys might have heard of called Monster Quest. So I'm just throwing that out there too. But oddly enough, he was on Monster Quest, and Doug here was the producer of Monster Quest. These two guys worked together for like 4 years and not one time met. It blew my mind. I heard that before we went live. It just blew my mind. Okay.
Well,
Tony, welcome to the show.
Tony was even claiming we haven't even talked.
See, Doug's right.
Well, Doug, it's true. I don't think we have. We've exchanged a mountain of emails and a mountain of texts. I don't think we have in all that time. I could be wrong.
But you could be right.
Yeah.
And I'd have no way to counteract because I'm getting old. We just put it this way. Me and Tony, we got a lot done. We accomplished a lot very smoothly. Right? We never had one issue.
Yeah. We didn't have a hiccup at all until we tried to do a Skype call. That's the only hiccup
I was going to say, the relationship was great until you guys actually had to talk.
Yeah. But Tony
probably
is
a pearl of wisdom there.
Tony is gifted on both sides of the camera, and Tony has pulled off. We want to talk about this. Very complex, very picky. When you're doing historical reenactments for the History Channel, they're doing thread counts on the shirts, okay, and the costumes.
Jeez.
And I'm not joking you. I am not joking. I could tell you personal stories on a reenactment that I did. And before I met Tony, and I got in trouble.
Because your thread count was off?
Literally on wool, on a wool sweater. The thread count was not correct.
Wow.
Yeah. I got a lot of stories like that too. Not that they're interesting, but to get called in and say, "Man, you showed this guy in this uniform with this insignia on it," and they didn't use that till 3 months later than the time frame. Yeah, it was a thing.
Well, Tony, weren't you involved in some? Was it the Last of the Mohicans? Some type of.
Yep, I'm in Last of the Mohicans for almost 4.5 seconds.
Wow.
Not all in one place. You gotta have the video ready, and you gotta pause it really quick. I worked on that movie for 3.5 months. That's kind of how that started me in doing film stuff, really.
Really?
And it actually came about because I have too many hobbies. I think most of us do, but one of my hobbies was historic reenactment. And when you say that to most people, they think of Civil War reenactors. But I didn't do Civil War stuff. I did 18th century stuff, the 1700s, in particular the French and Indian War, which is a setting for the Last Mohicans. And they went around looking to historic events for a group of people that could be their core extras that were already familiar with the weapons and things like that. And anyway, I got picked to be one of those core extras. And since I teach college and I'm off all summer long, I had that all summer to go do that. And I did that. And then one of the guys who was on there with me, History Channel was just kind of getting started at that time. Gosh, you could get stuff on TV with a consumer-grade camera. It was before high def. And so he got a contract to do some productions with the History Channel, and then I worked for him, and it went from there. Yeah.
How did you end up on Monster Quest?
Well, when I was working for the BFRO, or when I was part of the BFRO, I met another fellow. Can I say his name, Doug, or should I not? I got Kurt Nelson.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Who was at the University of Minnesota. And all my life, I've had an interest in, cryptozoology and strange nature things. And it was really neat to get to talk to another, biology guy, not just somebody who was interested in Bigfoot, but somebody actually with a background in biology that would talk about Bigfoot and not belittle the subject matter, And we got to be buddies. It's kind of interesting. The way we ever got to be buddies, actually, was my school sent me to a wildlife conference in Manitoba. And up there, I heard a story of a guy in 1941 shooting a Bigfoot. And I heard it from second hand, but it was a guy that knew the guy. It was a buddy of the guy that shot the Bigfoot, allegedly. And wow, what a story. And God, it's one of those near miss things. I can get to rambling and derail myself really easily.
Okay? Well, first off, I'm talking about Kurt.
Yeah, I'm talking about Kurt Nelson.
Okay.
Anyway, I heard this story from the guy that knew Paul Shabaga, was the guy's name that shot the Bigfoot. And anyway, I heard this story from a friend of his, and I'm like, wow, what a story. And then later, I went through a lot of trouble to try to contact the guy that told me that. As I recall, his name was David Buck. He was a retired game warden, Canadian game warden. And anyway, in the process, I ran into Kurt, who had actually met and interviewed Paul Shabaga. The real shame of it was years later, I went through an effort to try to interview Paul on tape, and I never got a hold of him, and he's passed away since. And when I say on tape, on videotape, which I don't think anybody ever did. But a really neat story if it's true. I don't know what he would gain by it not being true, and that can be said for so many Bigfoot stories,
That's so true.
And what is the story? Can you give us a little bit of
yeah, sure. I can give you the lowdown on the story. The story was 1941. Paul Shabaga and his uncle and his nephew were poaching moose in Manitoba. And and when I say that, they were hunting in a no-hunting area. But I think at that time, they only had one game warden for 1,500 square kilometers or whatever. So the odds that they would get caught were pretty low. And the uncle and the nephew had gone in one direction in the morning. Paul Shabag had gone the other way. And pretty early in the day, he shot a cow moose, but he gut shot it. And so he didn't kill it right away. And, that area of Manitoba is, it's not big, majestic spruce forest. It's a lot of swamps. It's low stuff. It's really thick. It's really hard to travel through. You go, 50 yards in a straight line. You hit some little marsh or bog. You got to go around and all this. So he had shot this moose, and he's blood trailing it. And the place is so thick that every time he gets close to it, it hears him coming and gets up and moves again. So all day long, he's been trailing this wounded moose. And finally, late in the day, he finally sees the moose, and the moose is facing directly away from him. Now, any of you guys that are in the audience there that are hunters know that if you're going to shoot a deer or a deer-like thing that's facing directly away from you, the best shot is to actually shoot it right through the anus. If you can do that, it goes through, it hits the heart, and also takes out both of the blood vessels going to the lungs.
Yeah.
So it's a really good fatal shot. So he can see the moose's, the rump there, and he lines up where he thinks the shoulder blades are, and he goes over and he shoots this moose. It immediately falls dead, and he walked over and he'd shot a Bigfoot in the spine and killed it dead. And what he took to be the moose's rump, he later thought the Bigfoot was standing apparently astride, straddling the blood trail of the moose. And what he took to be its butt was actually like its shoulder blades with its head tilted forward. It was looking down at the blood trail. And, what he said to Dave Buck, he said, I'd never heard of a Bigfoot. I'd never heard any legends of a Bigfoot. He said, and I thought I had killed a crazy Indian. He said, I thought, most of the population up there are Cree First Nation people. And he said, I thought I'd killed an Indian that went insane and went out and lived in the woods and ate raw meat till he grew giant and hairy. And he said, I looked at it for about 5 minutes and I walked off and left it. And if you look it up, Kurt's report is still on the BFRO website. And it was a really neat story. Anyway, so that's the story, and that's kind of how I met Kurt, and Kurt brought me into the BFRO, and so there's that.
So did I meet you through Kurt?
Yeah. As I recall, what happened, the way we ever got involved together was Kurt was on the Snellgrove Lake expedition with Monster Quest. And I don't know what your take on the first season of Monster Quest was, but for me, it was the first season we were actually out there really investigating. And then after that, the History Channel kind of went, we're not worried about investigation as much as we are the selling of the realityness of it or whatever. But that Snellgrove Lake was a really neat experience with some interesting things that happened to you guys. And right after that, we're going to film an episode in the Everglades in South Florida. And you'd asked Kurt to go, or somebody had asked Kurt if he could go. And he said, I just took time off work for going to Snellgrove Lake, and I'm not really a swamp guy. I'm not really a southern guy, I can't really take any more time off work, but I got a buddy that loves snakes and loves swamps and doesn't mind being hot and buggy, and he'd probably like to go. And so you tapped me to be the biologist in the field on the, I don't remember the title now, but it was, Bigfoot in the Everglades.
Skunk Ape.
That was it, yeah. And that was a really cool experience, and I had a great time, met some great folks. And it was shortly after that the guy that was your director for that one made the comment, Troy. He needed, what's that? Troy Parkinson.
Troy. Yep, Troy.
Yeah. And Troy said, I need to do some historic reenactments, and I need to do, I need some interviews with some Native Americans about this. And I said, well, man, there's this historic event coming up in Alabama that I'm going to. If you would send me a cameraman, I could do both those things for you. Just tell me what you need done. And so we did, and it worked out, and then I became part of the Monster Quest team.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was a great
cool
4
story.
years, man. Some of the best times of my life.
Well,
I'm sad that it's not ongoing.
Give me the laundry list, because you even, as I remember, we sent you to India, correct?
Went to India, went to Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Doug, I owe you big for a bunch of the experiences I've had. But when you were talking about me being on here as a guest spot, man, I tell you what, of odd things that have ever happened to me in my life or stories and things like that, I thought, I just don't have that many. And I was listening to some of the back episodes, and man, Lord, I've never had coffee with a dead guy or been kidnapped by aliens. And everything that's really odd in my life is fairly mundane compared to some of your other guests. But fearing I would have nothing to talk about for an hour, I sat down and I made a laundry list of every woo-woo thing I've ever experienced. And in one of your back shows, you talk about, it seems like certain people just have these experiences or whatever.
Yeah.
I never thought of myself as one of those people. I've never seen a Bigfoot, never been kidnapped by aliens. But I sat down and I made a list of every woo-woo thing that I've ever experienced. And I came up with 12 things. And then some other stuff I could talk about. Well, and of those 12 things, because I think we also talked about certain places seem to have a much higher woo-woo factor. So I've got this list of my 12 things. 6 of the 12 happened in New Mexico. If there was ever a woo-woo place, I guess it's New Mexico.
Right. Yeah, New Mexico, man. You're right.
I'm not from New Mexico. I spent 8 summers of my life working in New Mexico, and I've been out there many other times. But, I'm 62, and so for being 62, that's a pretty small percentage of my life. But half the things that have ever been strange in my life have happened there. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
So let's hear one of your New Mexico stories.
Well, here's the thing. Most of them are just almost blasé. Most of them are just things that make you go, huh? You want the best woo woo one, or just one that I'm the most intrigued by?
Yeah, let's anything, Tony.
Okay, well here this is really mundane compared to being kidnapped by aliens, but. One time, it was back when I was teaching high school, so it was probably about 1983. I was coming back from working in northeastern New Mexico, and I was going way out of my way just because I like to travel. And I'm going south in New Mexico, and there's a rest area on the interstate as you're heading toward Las Cruces, and about a half mile off this interstate is a big sand dune area. And I'm assuming it's private property. There's not a road out there that I know of, but you can see it from the rest area, which I think is why they put the rest area there. And I taught earth science in junior high at the time. And God, this is before the internet and before everything, before digital photography, really. And I want to walk out there and take some slides to show in my earth science class. And so my girlfriend at the time is like, you knock yourself out, because it's about a half mile walk across there, and it's noon, right? But so Mad Dogs, Englishmen, and earth science teachers, I go trekking out across there to go to the sand dune field, and I get there, and it's really hot, and I also might add it had rained a day or two before, and so as I'm walking along, the sand has like a little crust on it, that you break through, just the very upper layer. Yeah. And I'm walking around, I'm taking pictures of sand dunes and stuff, and I notice way off in the distance, there's a dark object out on the crest of a sand dune. And I'm taking pictures, and I look at it, and I try looking at it through the telephoto, and I still can't see what it is. And I'm looking at it, but it looks like it's a long damn way off, right? And it's hot. But finally, I'm just like, okay, I got to know what that thing is. I'm going to walk all the way over there to it, because it looks like it's, the size of a phone booth and a long way away. So I go trucking off, and when I got about halfway there, I realized you've all experienced the phenomena of you looked at something, you thought it was a different size than it was because there was nothing to judge scale from,
Sure.
like out in a snowy field or out in a grassy pasture with no trees or whatever. Well, it turns out this thing, it looked the size of a phone booth at first, but it wasn't. It was really much closer to me, and it wasn't that big. And as I got closer to it, it was a pile of wet sand. It was a pile of wet sand about as big as a kid's little plastic bucket that they take to the beach or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like it was about that much sand, like if you'd taken a beach bucket and dumped it out on top of this dune. And it's damp, and it's all stuck together, and it's mounded up. And I'm thinking, why is this wet sand here on this scorching hot day at noon? And then I think, aha, there's some critter that's, dug a hole, some burrowing thing, and it's dug up this wet sand from the rain a couple days ago. Well, I want to take a picture of this critter, right? So I get my camera all ready, and then with the other hand, I very carefully, all at once, quickly move the wet sand away. Well, the wet sand moves as a lump, and underneath it is the unbroken little layer of crust on the surface of sand. So, boy, that's pretty low scale for woo-woo, but here's this pile of wet sand in the middle of the desert at noon. I don't get it. I've thought, could a pelican puke up a bunch of wet sand? I don't know where that comes from. Okay. So that's not very good, right? Here's a better one.
It's bizarre. So what was the reason?
It is bizarre.
So
well, there's no resolution. There's no, and most of the really odd things in my life, of my little list of 12, they're kind of like that. You just go, huh?
But the thing is, you noticed, you took the time to be aware of your world and to go, something's not right here.
Yeah, something's amiss here. What's going on with this? Yeah.
Right. Well, that's, I still think about it sometimes. I still try to speculate, how could I have got a lump of wet sand on top of this unbroken crust of other sand, no tracks, no nothing, and why was it still wet at noon in the desert? I don't know.
And the Mongolian deathworm.
Yeah.
Right there. There it is.
Well, so here's another one. And, Joe Turry, who's a buddy of mine that just did a production or a documentary on the big muddy monster flap of the 1970s here in Southern Illinois, he described me on that thing as the most open-minded skeptic he'd ever met. Well, I actually really take pride in that. I like to consider myself a skeptic. And so here's one that I'm a little bit embarrassed telling, but it actually happened to me, and I don't know what to do with it. So once again, it was when I worked in New Mexico. This one was about probably 1985. I worked at a place, Philmont Scout Ranch, which was owned by the Boy Scouts. It's the largest backpacking operation in the world. And I worked a backcountry camp doing living history stuff, but that's neither here nor there. But so you get a set of days off every 2 weeks or so, and you'd hike down out of the mountains, and and these other outpost camps kind of had their days off rotation. So you'd end up on the same days off with the same people. And you got to be buddies with some of them. So I got down one time on a set of days off, and I got down kind of late, and I couldn't find any of my buddies to hang out with. And I heard that they were having a dance over in Red River. The Michael Martin Murphy, who was a kind of a folk singer that used to be popular back in the 70s, he has a bar over there. And I thought, well, I'll drive over that and see if I can find any of my buddies. Well, it was over a mountain pass called Palafachado Pass, and you go up this thing and you switch back up, and then you get to the top, and then you switch back down on the road. So you basically, one side of the road has a little short cliff, and then the road, and then it drops off down to the next switchback, if you can picture that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's dark, and I'm coming around a switchback, and I see an animal at the top of the cliff. It's not a very tall cliff, like 8 feet, let's say. And right as I'm approaching it, it jumps down into the road right in front of my car. And it jumped so right in front of my car, I distinctly remember it's a quadruped, it's on 4 legs, it hits the ground, and I see its legs bend as it absorbs the impact of jumping down, and then the legs start to straighten back up as its body rises, and then it's blocked by the hood of my car because I'm just going to nail this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's right in front of me. And I grit my teeth for the impact, and I don't seem to feel any impact, but I think, there's no way I didn't hit that. And I go down to the bend of the switchback, do a 19-point turn to get turned around, and come back up to see what's laying in the road. Well, there's not anything in the road. And so I go up to the top, and I turn around again, and I drove back and forth about 3 times. And then I get out of the car, and I look, all around, walk up and down the road, and I think, well, I had to have hit it. Maybe it fell off on the lower, maybe it's down the road beyond the switchback. And so I go down, and I can't find it, and I walk back and forth, and I never did find it.
Calling all partners. Losing weight is better together with Nutrisystem's Partner Plan. In fact, people who diet together lose 20% more weight than dieting on their own. Get new premium meals with up to 30 grams of protein. They're big and filling and taste delicious. Plus, try our new restaurant faves that taste like your favorite restaurant, portioned with half the calories. Don't wait. You could win big cash during Nutrisystem's Better Together Partner Plan 100K giveaway. And maybe win the grand prize of $25,000. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/thin right now and get 50% off plus an extra $50 off your first month. You heard me right. Go to Nutrisystem.com/thin right now and get 50% off plus an extra $50 off. Don't wait. This partner plan offer will not last long. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/thin right now and get 50% off plus an extra $50 off. Go to Nutrisystem.com/thin. See website for details on our 2-month subscription offer. No purchase necessary. Open only to U.S. residents over 21. Void where prohibited. Runs December 25 through April 4th, 2022. For official rules, visit Nutrisystem.com. Sponsored by Nutrisystem, Inc.
What I saw it was black. It was black like a black cat or Labrador retriever. Didn't appear to be dark brown. And, everybody that I'm telling this, they think I'm going to say a black panther. It looked for all the world like a 160-pound, solid black, giant raccoon. It had the little tufty face, extensions that a raccoon has on its cheeks. And I've tried to convince myself that this was just a bear, but it had a long, fluffy tail that when it hit the ground actually kind of went up over its back a little bit, arched over its back as it hit the ground. I saw it very distinctly. The closest possible living thing I can think of is a wolverine. There aren't wolverines in New Mexico. I don't know that there were ever wolverines in New Mexico. Wolverines are brown with that kind of dorsal stripe. This thing was solid black. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that.
That's strange.
And so, you can do is just forever put it in your, in your gray basket, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And there's no real way to investigate it. I would love to talk to anybody, out there in a listening audience that's ever seen a giant black raccoon. If Monster Quest had gone on, one of the episodes I was going to propose is what I call the one-offs. And I call that one a one-offs. Yeah. These odd things like that somebody reports, that nobody ever mentions again.
It's kind of like a glitch,
Yeah.
There was I've got to tell this story only because I'll never get another chance. But I was driving my daughter, Dakota, to school, and she was probably like 13. And it's like a 2-mile, run to the school. And so we're driving, and all of a sudden we see this huge animal at the side of the road that's dead. There's blood everywhere, and there's some tissue. And I pull over because it's a weird color. It's about 6 foot long, 7 foot long. Pull over. I get out of my car. I get out of the car. I'm looking at it. It's got rounded ears. It's got like the hooves of a llama, I guess.
Uh-huh.
It was not as big as a horse, but And I examined it, and I could hear my daughter going, "Dad, I'm going to be late for school." And I thought, okay, great. I'll hop in, I'll drop her off, and I'll come back, do photography and do all this, because this animal is completely misplaced. It's got ears like a bear. It's got hooves like a deer, or not a deer, a llama. And it's got the coloration of fur like some kind of really weird animal. It's like brownish and wavy. It's got gold in it. And anyhow, so on the way back, I come back and all there is shovel marks. Everything was cleaned up. And we don't even know.
Man.
3 minutes. And to
what
this
a shame.
day,
that's a fishing county right there, getting rid of the roadkill.
Yeah, it was like something cleaned it up so quick.
Huh.
And yet it was this magic creature, almost like what's that creature? The one that's in the Pine Barrens. The
the Jersey Devil. Yeah.
Jersey Devil. It's like a creature like that.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's just the Men in Black got it before you could get back.
Yeah, it's just that little bit of a glitch. You know what you saw, and yet you have no proof, none.
Right.
Man, that is weird.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, talking about glitches, in one of your past episodes, talk about synchronicity and things like that. I kind of got a story like that, but there again, it's just a story.
Yeah, what the hell was that all about moments?
Yeah, and it was basically one of my buddies, his name's David Wells, who lives in Chicago, or St. Louis now, and he's a professional photographer, and he's a really good photographer. And anyway, he'd come down to visit, and we went to the town of, we call it Cairo. The rest of the world would call it Cairo. But anyway, it's right in the southern tip of Illinois. It's a neat town. It was a big deal from the late 1800s to the 1940s, and its population has decreased tremendously. But it used to be lots of old buildings from the 20s, 30s, and 40s that were abandoned and such, and they've torn a lot of them down since. But so we went down there, and he's photographing stuff. We've got our families with us, and you know how every country, maybe this is not this way in Minnesota, but the further south you get, every small country town has a caboose that's set somewhere downtown.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah, when the railroads quit using them, they donated them, I guess.
Them there. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a caboose sitting down by the flood wall, and we get out and we walk around the caboose and take some pictures of it, and it's locked, so you can't go in it. But so David takes a bunch of pictures, and as we're leaving, he takes a zillion pictures. As we're walking back to the car, we park about a block away. He takes a long-distance shot of it. And a couple weeks later, he calls me and said, "Hey, man, there wasn't anybody on that caboose, was there?" And I'm like, "No, we were the only ones there. Why?" And he's like, "Well, look at his picture." And I look at the picture. I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Look at the end of the caboose." And so and I'm like, "Well, you can kind of see, it looks like somebody's sitting on the end of the caboose, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Now, let me, I'm going to send you a shot of this blown up." And so the next day when I get to school, I get it. And yeah, it's there's somebody like sitting on the end of the caboose. You can't see him real well. He'd enlarged it 400 times, but it's a guy sitting there. It looks like an old man. He's all kind of hunched over. And he's like, as we're talking about it after I've got the picture, he's like, "Don't the limbs and stuff look out of proportion?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." And he's like, "Doesn't the head, look like it's coming out of the body at the wrong angle?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe the guy's a hunchback." And he was wearing a check shirt, right? And so that was in 2014. In 2020, I was listening to a podcast by Celia Edgar. You guys familiar with her?
No, I've heard the name, yeah. Yeah.
She's somebody you ought to get on. Anyway, she does podcasts on high strangeness stuff. Mostly, just all kind of stuff, really. But she did one that apparently in a high percentage of high strangeness cases, be it Bigfoots, UFOs, or ghosts, if somebody's wearing some kind of clothing of the strangeness and they mention colors or anything like that, there's a high percentage of them that are checked. And I thought, wait, that ghost that David took the picture of or whatever, that dude was wearing a check shirt. So I call up my buddy David. This is in 2020 now. He took the photo in 2014. And I said, hey, man, I just read, listen to this girl's podcast where she talks about ghost and check shirts. Your ghost had a check shirt. I'm like, have you got that picture? And he's like, well, man, I got hundreds of thousands of pictures, on the cloud. I don't really quite know where I filed it. And I'm like, well, if you find it, I'd like to get a, copy of it again.
Yeah.
Okay. So flash forward to 2022, and Doug asked me to be a guest on the show, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't have beans to talk about. Yeah, I almost said that, didn't I?
It's okay.
Anyway,
yeah.
And so anyway, I make this list of things. One of the things on my list was David's ghost photo. And I thought, well, maybe they'd like to put that on their website or something. And so I called David up and said, no. And I thought, I ought to call David and see if he ever found that photo. But I thought that in the morning while I was here in my office, I forgot about it that day. And then that night, I get a text from David, and he says, hey, I found it. And I wrote him back, like, found what? And he's like, the ghost picture. Now, I thought that day, I ought to call him and ask for it. I didn't ever get to call him. And he calls me up that night or texts me and says, hey, I found it. How weird is that?
That is strange.
That's not really high strangeness. That's low strangeness, I guess. It's tiny strangeness. But what do you do with that?
I kind of laugh because a lot of people come on the show and they'll be like, well, I got nothing to talk about. Nothing weird has happened to me. We start talking and go, well, wait a minute. This thing happened to me once before. And it's like, oh my God, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And they're like, what do you mean? And that, it's just little things like that. So it's people, if they really look back and they think hard, there's a lot of strangeness around us. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're describing a whole bunch of it. You said you have a list of 12, and that's all very strange things.
Well, it's a pretty low level of woo-woo, And none of them really get good and resolved. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that with Bigfoot, for instance, when I started on with the BFRO, I badly wanted Bigfoot to be some kind of undescribed primate that we just overlooked in 400 gun-toting years of North American history, And I would interview witnesses, and I'd talk about how long was the hair and what color and what did this look. And I felt like I was building up this profile of some unknown but very much flesh and blood sort of animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I no longer believe that. I believe the Bigfoot phenomena is real. I believe people are really seeing stuff. They're not all hoaxes. They're not all misidentifications. But I don't believe Bigfoot is a flesh and blood like a bear or deer or whatever. Now, what it is, I don't know. But, it's also, to me, kind of the height of hubris to think that we have the laws of chemistry and physics completely worked out right now, right?
Yeah.
This could all relate, and that's kind of my own pet theory is I feel like all the things we might, I don't know who coined the term high strangeness, but a lot of people use that term. I feel like those are all different facets of the same phenomena we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
Be it ghost or men in black or my black raccoon or Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, one reason I kind of think this has to do with Black Panthers. People see Black Panthers all over the world, right? And I mean, there's no such thing as a black panther. It's either black leopard or black jaguar. But yet people report big black cats in England, in the United States, in France, in Australia. When I was in Australia, the Monster Quest, Gary Opit and I talked about it a lot. And usually over there, here in the United States, it's always the circus train that wrecked. In Australia, the Black Panthers are escaped mascots from American soldiers during World War II that are made a population or breeding. But, as far as I can tell, because I'm a history guy too, I don't see any reference to Black Panthers before the late 1800s in North America. Now, in the South, south of Mississippi River, historically we've always called a cougar a panther, right?
Yep.
And say you were a kid growing up in, 1910. You didn't have TV, you didn't even have radio. What did you do on a cold winter night for entertainment? You sat around, you listened to old folks tell stories, right? Yeah. And what were the coolest, scariest stories they had? They were the ones about panthers. Now, they probably didn't go into, it's a panther, it's tan color, it's this and that. But when you, as an adult in 1910 or whatever, you grew up listening to these panther stories, you go to Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus and you see a panther, you see a black leopard or black jaguar. So your mental image of what a panther looks like is a big black cat. And that's when we start getting reports of black panthers, which continue right up to today. Now, the thing is, I'm not saying that people not seeing black panthers. I'm just saying those reports don't exist before the late 1800s that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like once people get this mental image of this, what this thing is, and it's here, then it is.
Yeah.
So
I hear what you're saying.
I think when I was on the road for, I think it was Mysterious Encounters show, every time we would ask about Bigfoot, people would well, I didn't see a Bigfoot, but we saw a Black Panther,
Yeah, my dad saw a Black Panther.
Yeah.
And he was a preacher that didn't drink, smoke, cuss, or even have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But, not a great story. He just saw it run across. Yeah, he just saw it run across the road, So what do you do with that? I don't know.
I know we've covered that very subject at a couple, 2 or 3 different shows about Black Panthers in British Isles as well. So, just out of place, creatures out of place that don't belong where they are. Right. And,
I did some of the reenactments for one of the Monster Quest episodes on that.
Ah, okay.
Just bopping subjects around here, and I don't know why this just occurred to me, but I thought, man, I got an audience. There's a Bigfoot hoax that an unintended Bigfoot hoax that still makes the internet and stuff periodically that I'd love to mention just to try to again get the record set straight on this one. And it's every continent that has people has its Bigfoot legends, right? Yeah. My wife's from the highlands of Luzon, Philippines, and over there Bigfoot's a Capri, and he smokes cigars. But anyway, there's been repeated Bigfoot stories from Vietnam, and I forget what the name typically is. Nung Roy, is that right, Doug?
Yeah, and they call them rock apes and.
Right, and talking about guys in Vietnam and stuff. Well, a former high school student of mine that was also interested in Bigfoot worked with a guy that was a Vietnam vet. And these guys got to be really good buddies, and they were constantly pulling different practical jokes on each other at work. And my buddy was also kind of into Bigfoot. And there was I'm not going to name his name, but a Bigfoot investigator in Illinois that, I don't know, to me is a little bit gullible in terms of things he accepts as evidence that sure look fake to me. Anyway, but this student of mine, this former student, was a big coyote hunter. He was a big predator caller. And this Bigfoot investigator had a bunch of sound bites on his site that he'd recorded. And my buddy said, some of those are immature coyotes. And I'm like, well, you ought to tell him that. And so he wrote, the guy a thing on his website saying, hey, recordings number 3, 6, and 9 are immature coyotes that are just beginning to howl and just beginning to call. And the guy responded, no, they weren't coyotes. They were Bigfoot's imitating coyotes.
Oh, boy.
And anyway, and they had a couple exchanges. And he said, then one day I got this phone call, and I didn't recognize the number. And the guy's like, I'm going to use a fake name. But he said, is this Bob Smith? And he's like, yeah, who is this? And the guy's like, Bob Smith from Franklin, Illinois. And he's like, yeah, who are you? Well, it was the Bigfoot investigator. And he wanted to tell him some more about how he knew that these were Bigfoots, not coyotes. And he said, I didn't give the guy my name or didn't even what town he's in. I don't know how he found out, that I lived in this town and I this was my phone number and all. And then later on, his buddy that he worked with, he liked to play practical jokes on. That guy was a Vietnam vet. And he's like, man, I got a great joke I'm going to pull on him. So he writes this story about how he says he sends it to the Bigfoot researcher, and it was, I was in Vietnam, and he says, one time we ran into a Viet Cong patrol, and we had this firefight, and right in the middle of the firefight, this huge, hairy, kind of human, kind of ape thing jumps up, and we all start shooting at it, and it breaks toward the Viet Cong lines. And we can hear them shooting and carrying on too, and then we break off the engagement and we go back. But, the next day we just keep asking the top sergeant, can we go see that thing's body? And he finally relents, and we go there, and we don't find a body of the ape man, but we find this Viet Cong soldier's been torn in half. And anyway, he makes this story, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't give a name, but he gives enough details of his buddy's time in Vietnam, like that you could figure out what unit he was with and where he was and all this other kind of stuff. And he signs just the guy's first name, and he goes and he mails it from the town that this guy lives in. Well, about 2 weeks later, the Bigfoot researcher calls him, and he's like, who are you? And he's like, well, man, you sent me this letter about this rock ape in Vietnam. And he's like, I did not. And the Bigfoot researcher won't take no for an answer, right? He keeps on, he's like, no, man, you can tell me. You can talk to me. I'm not going to make fun of you. It's like, I don't even know who you are, and I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, well, did you serve with thus and such unit in Vietnam at this time? He's like, yes, I did, but I didn't write you, And anyway, the Bigfoot researcher won't take no. And so anyway, and that guy goes at that. This is a time when it was just blogs. He publishes a story on his blog and said, without the name, and he said, I contacted this individual, but he's very reluctant to talk about it. Most Bigfoot witnesses are blah, blah, blah. And so at that point, I called my high school student. I'm like, dude, it's getting out of hand. You got to tell the truth. And he's like, okay, go ahead and tell him. Just don't use my name. So I wrote into that guy's blog and said, hey, look, and he published my response to that. But since then, I've actually seen the story on, I don't know, 4 or 5 other internet sources. Totally, utterly fake.
That story has been reenacted on a couple of YouTube channels. They've talked about.
Has it really?
That is why it's so. Wait a minute. I've heard this one, and I've seen, just people talking about it in different podcasts. There's a story about this happening, and so it's still out there. It's still alive.
And he made it's a great practical joke, but it sucks for us, investigators of this sort of thing.
Yeah, it does. Because it's fake, and wow,
right?
That's kudos to him though. He got staying power on his prank, I guess.
Well, he didn't really, he didn't think it would go that far. I guess.
Yeah.
I think he feels a little bad about it at this point. But yeah.
But researchers also have to do their own due diligence to make sure that they're correct and they're accurate, the stories, to the best of their abilities.
And, cryptozoology and paranormal researchers are the worst at that, in my opinion.
You gotta have your own. You have to have enough of a skeptical mindset to be able to separate the fake from the real.
You really do.
So what do you think is the best evidence for Bigfoot?
The best evidence?
Yeah.
I gave a talk at my school a couple months ago and called A Biologist Looks at Bigfoot. And it was an hour long. The first half hour was me explaining why there cannot possibly be a Bigfoot and all the evidence against it. And the second half hour was me, all the evidence saying, but what do you do about this? Frankly, is the best evidence, for me personally, it's the stories of people that absolutely have nothing to gain by telling a big tale or a lie and only have ridicule. and yet kind of do it anyway. You know, second best evidence to me are trackways that show evidence of dynamic features in the tracks. And you had Dr. Meldrum on last week. I listened to most of that interview right before we started tonight. And, I can't say anything that he didn't, but wow, how do you do that? If that's not for real. And that kind of widespread hoax. But Dr. Meldrum also mentioned that critics will take like one negative evidence and say, well, what do you do about this? And it's like their pet thing. I've got my own negative pet thing. You want to hear that one?
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is, I'm a history guy, right? And my main focus in history is the 18th century frontier, right?
Yeah.
There were years and that's how I got in show stuff. That's how I got in Last Mohicans, that I spent just, every 18th century document, or whether the first person was not some scholar's thing, not some scholarly book about this on the 18th century. I wanted to read what some guy that was on the 18th century frontier said. There is a complete, utter absence of Bigfoot in North America from 1600 to 20. People are going to jump in there and say, "Oh, the Native Americans have always had legends of Bigfoot." If you look closely, no, they've always had legends of giants and this and that. But as far as if you want to make Bigfoot an undescribed, if you want to make him Gigantopithecus, no, they really don't. You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. The Cherokee had the legend of the slant-eyed giant. But if you read the legend or hear the legend, it's just a giant guy. These were in the 18th century, the southeastern Native Americans plucked all their body hair, including the pubic hair and their eyebrows. If this giant was hairy, wouldn't that have been worth a mention in the story? But it doesn't get one.
Yeah,
why? Yeah, why doesn't Daniel? Well, Daniel Boone has a Bigfoot story. It's a whole nother deal. It's a Yowie story, or Yahoo story out of Gulliver's Travel. But why doesn't Simon Kenton or William Bartram or John James Audubon or Lepage de Prats or James Adair, any of these people that were on the 18th century frontier, why don't they have a Bigfoot story if Bigfoot's found in Kentucky and Indiana and Tennessee and Mississippi?
Sure.
And yet I can come up with a Mississippi story that I just don't know what to do with.
Yeah. Have you, I would imagine you're familiar with the Champlain story?
Yeah, but, Champlain's story is really pretty vague, right?
Yeah.
And there's a number, there were wild giants that threw rocks at us or whatever. I don't remember Champlain's well enough to quote it off the top of my head. But, there's a couple from the coast of Canada really early on, like early 1600s, that talk about wild giants and stuff. But, if that's the case, if Champlain saw Bigfoots, then how come nobody that followed after Champlain for the next 200 years had a story?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that if there is a Bigfoot. That to me is a pretty, Chad Arment.
Tony, not to cut you off at all, but you're kind of right. I mean, devil's advocate here. You're right. There is very little, if any, mention before those time frames about Bigfoot.
Yeah,
and
Chad Arment,
Lewis and Clark. You would think that they would have mentioned something. Yeah,
is it David Tompkins that went across Canada?
David Thompson.
I think Thompson. Yeah, came. The tracks he described as the mammoth tracks, and his Native American guides wouldn't. Said if you're going to follow those, we're going to leave you.
Yeah.
I want to think that's 1815. Is that correct? That's the earliest what I think of as a sounds like our Bigfoot sort of account. But there's 200 years in between there of Europeans here with nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Chad Arment, great book, The Historic Bigfoot. I'm sure, Doug, you're familiar with it. He writes all these historic accounts, but there again, they start in the 1800s. And we've had 200 well-documented years of history in between there.
Do you?
So that's
believe,
my favorite
Tony,
piece of negative evidence. Yeah.
Do you believe in Bigfoot?
Man, I believe in the Bigfoot phenomena. I believe something's really going on. I believe people are really seeing something. They're not making it up. They're not lying about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. You know, I'm sitting here in my office at school, 6 miles from here in Southern Illinois. I have a story of a guy that describes to me what sounds like a chimpanzee that he and his granddaughters both saw. He's a math teacher here. He's a church deacon. He doesn't drink. He has nothing to gain by telling a big tale like that. What do I do with that? You know, he saw it on a weekend. He told me about it on Monday. I was there Monday afternoon looking for tracks and such. It was really hot. I didn't find anything. You know, it was dry. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And if I tell you what, though, if you're looking at something scientifically, you can't just write it off because it doesn't fit your preconceived what things ought to be. That's one of my beefs with the BFRO. You know, they had Class A as a sighting, Class B as physical evidence, but no sighting. But then there was another category that said paranormal UFO. And if the Bigfoot sighting had any of those aspects, it went in that trash can, right, that said paranormal UFO, because the BFRO already decided it's an unknown primate, you know, like a gorilla. But if you're actually investigating something scientifically, you don't get to throw out the things that don't fit your preconceived notion.
Yeah. No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because there's people out there that believe that Bigfoot is an alien. And
right. Yeah.
You know, as much as I might not agree with that, doesn't mean they're wrong, though. I could be the one that's wrong. They could be the one that's right.
Right. You know, we never even talked about Hulikurka or Bel Baliknik in the Philippines and in India, and we're almost up, right?
Oh, we got another half hour.
It's Wow Wednesdays at Hy-Vee. This Wednesday, get bread for just 99 cents. Wow, that's right. Get Sara Lee honey wheat bread for just 99 cents. Wednesday only. Check out HyVeeDeals.com for more deals. Some restrictions may apply.
Oh, do we? Okay, great.
Yeah, we got another half hour, man.
Okay.
Keep going.
Well, I don't know. You know, as a biologist, I tell you here, Doug, the show I always wanted to do, but it would never probably get any ratings. I always wanted to do one called Real Cryptozoology. I despise the standard reality show format where we're walking around in the dark with some lights and we go, "What's that?" And then we cut to commercial. Then we come back after commercial and spend the next 5 minutes telling everything that's happened in the show up to this point before we go, "Oh, it was only an owl," or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to take real, either, basically, I guess Forrest Galante is already doing this, but potentially extinct animals that could still exist, or completely, scientifically unknown animals that are known from, ethnic accounts wherever they are, and investigate that, And my favorite possibility there, the one I really love, is Hulikurka in India. And Doug, in the giant crocodiles, or anyway, killer crocs, or I forget what the episode's actual name ended up being. You sent me to India there with Monster Quest, and we actually got some really cool footage. As far as I know, to this day, it's still the only footage of what was the largest wild saltwater crocodile on Earth.
Yep.
They called her Maya Sasur, meant big demon.
A lot of people don't realize that we ended up filming. That's where we used the laser lens, laser measuring lens too, to measure the size of the.
Right.
Then you guys measured the slide, the width of the.
We tried measuring the snout to, back of the head ratio, and extrapolating from there. But anyway, it came out with something like right around 23 feet long.
Yeah.
Which the largest crocodile at the time, and I don't know if this changed, was a captive one in Australia that was 23 and a half or something. But anyway, in the Western Ghats of India, on the other side of India, in the mountainous region there, I had a buddy that was doing king cobra research over there, and what was it, 2019? Since I had a buddy there, we invited ourselves to go visit him. You know, he didn't say, "Well, hey, why don't you come visit me?" We were, "Hey, man, we're going to come visit." So we did. But while I was there, I heard actually on the crocodile episode, I met and got to be friends with Romulus Whitaker, who's one of the foremost crocodile biologists in the world, and he started a Gombe rainforest research station in the Western Ghats, and it was from him that I first heard of a leopard-size undescribed cat, and basically it was as big as a leopard, and but kind of a grayish color with no stripes or spots except the tip of the tail was black. And I remember asking Rom, I said, "Well, why do you think it's not just an abnormal coloration population of leopards?" And he said, "Well, I've talked to at least 2 different biologists that claim to have seen it, and they say its body proportion is all different. You know, it's not shaped quite like a leopard other than being a cat." And so when I went to Agumbe, they had a different name for it there. They call it huli kurka, and it's
never heard of
leopard-size, undescribed cat. And the thing that everybody agrees on about it is they absolutely hate dogs. The guy who was doing the king cobra research, the property owner at the place where he had his radio transmittered king cobra, said he'd had 2 dogs killed by a huli kurka. And the guy that was the manager of the field station claimed to have seen one twice. On the other hand, you know, my king cobra buddy, he said, "Yeah, but you know, the Fish and Wildlife people have got hundreds of camera traps out there, thousands of hours on these camera traps, and nobody's ever turned one up." But the neat thing about that to me is, you know, there's nothing, it's not scary, it's not mystical. This is a place where you've got the largest venomous snake on earth, you've got real tigers and real lions and real elephants. They don't need to make up a scary thing out there in the woods.
It's true.
You know, which is so often the case with cryptids. Like, we've killed off every real dangerous thing, but we humans, we kind of need that in our psyche, you know?
Yeah.
We need that scarier thing out there in the woods. And so we come up with black panthers or dogmen or whatever like that. Well, God knows they don't need a scary thing in the woods in the Western Ghats. They got a ton of them.
Yeah, right.
But yet they still have huli kurka. That's not that scary. You know, it kills your dog. Mm-hmm. That's something I would love for somebody to go, "Man, Tony, you know, here, you're a worthy lad. Here's some money. Why don't you go investigate that?" I would love to do a documentary on huli kurka.
So you ready to go back to India then?
Oh man, Doug, I'll go back tomorrow. I will quit my job here and go. Well, I will quit in May at the end of the semester if you say the word, dude.
Hey, if you've got contacts who...
I absolutely have contacts. In fact, the guy that was stationed, here's a little huli kurka story, not that it's a big one, but 6 years ago, this guy says the people in this village near Agumbe actually caught one alive.
Oh,
2 teenage boys were hunting with dogs in the jungle. And there was a juvenile huli kurka, and it ran into a hollow log to try to escape the dogs. But the dog still managed to catch it by the back legs because it couldn't get all the way in this hollow log. And the boys managed to catch it alive, except it scratched them all the hell up. And I said, "Well, did you see this?" And he said, "You know, I didn't get to actually see this one because I was the one." I'm telling this like he's telling it directly to me. This is going through an interpreter. But anyway, he said, "I was the one that took them to the hospital because they were scratched up that bad. And while we were gone, the village elders said they had no business having this thing, and they let it go." And that was like 6 years prior to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But anyway, to me, of all the cryptids that I've ever heard of and heard people talk about, that one sounds the closest to something that could be, you know, something that you could really find and say, "Look, here it is. We got a picture of it. You know, here's some some hair, and we've done genetic testing, and sure enough, it's a new undescribed leopard-sized cat. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that. That sounds...
I would be so on it.
Yeah, that's...
that'd be cool as all hell.
Yeah.
What would that be?
It's doable.
Well, and I've got a bunch of contacts there. I got a guy that agreed to be my translator and go back with me if I ever went to do it. And, and like I said, stayed there at Agombe. Let me tell you about another one. Just sometimes research just, Joel, you were talking about doing your due diligence and doing your own research.
Yeah.
Man, sometimes that'll just shoot a really good hypothesis right in the ass. And that did it for me on Belbaleknik.
Yeah.
Okay, so my wife is what in Philippines is known as an egorot. Now, when I first started courting her, everybody that had been to the Philippines and my buddies that had been there was like, "Oh man, whatever you do, don't call her an egorot. That's a horribly derogatory name." Mm-hmm. And then I get over there and I see young kids with egorot and proud of it on their shirt, and stuff like that, egorot pride. But the egorots it's a collective name for the tribal hill people. Historically, the lowland Filipinos had always looked down on them to the point that, to call somebody an egorot was like saying, you're a hayseed, you're a bumpkin, that sort of thing. But anyway, so my wife is a member of a tribe called the Kalangwea, and they have, like any tribal people, various legends and stories about different things like that, and some of them are pretty cool. Just to sidetrack myself very quickly for just a moment, all over Asia, every culture seems to have these legends of a crowing snake, of a snake that crows like a rooster or whatever. They have them in India. They have them in the Philippines. Something I find really intriguing there, you brought up Lewis and Clark earlier, Doug. As Lewis and Clark, it's in the Lewis and Clark journals, they're going west. Probably the most important man they had with them was a half Shawnee guy named George Gerard. He's half French, half Shawnee. He was a great hunter. And one day he goes out, and when he comes back, he makes a comment that there was a snake out in a pond that he went by, and it gobbled like a turkey. And so somebody starts making fun of him about, a snake gobbled like a turkey. And one of the French boatmen that's with him jumps up and goes, no, I've seen and heard that too. So, it's funny that those same legends carry over, or very close to the same legends, so many different places.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you ever heard of the legend of the hoop snake. It's really kind of more of a southern thing in the United States.
What is that? I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Well, here's what it is. The hoop snake legend is hoop snakes like to lay up at the top of hills. They want to get up on some high place. And if you walk up there toward them, all at once, when they see you, they will grab their tail in the mouth, and they will come rolling down the hill like a hoop, right? And when they get close to you, they will launch themselves tail first like a javelin. And they have a venomous stinger in their tail. And if it hits you, man, you are dead. And when I was a kid growing up in Kentucky, a little kid, people of my grandfather's generation are like, no, that's real. In fact, your great uncle so-and-so got chased by one, and right when it launched at him, he jumped behind his tree, and that snake hit that tree instead, and that tree died. And it's still down there. There's a big old dead oak tree down there, that sort of thing.
Jeez,
so that's the hoop snake legend, right? Well, in my wife's people, they have a legend of Belbaleknik, and it's the exact same thing. It's a snake that takes its tail in its mouth and rolls like a hoop and has a venomous, it's the hoop snake under a different name. And I historically, I found at one point that, in the early 1800s, by 1815, apparently, there was a village of Filipinos living in the swamps outside New Orleans. And they were Philippine sailors that jumped ship for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And they had this little village. They actually called it Manila Town. Okay. And I thought, man, there's another aspect of this story too. I thought that's where the hoop snake legend came from. The hoop snake legend in the United States was brought by these Philippine sailors as Belbalek neck and transferred into the hoop snake in the United States. And when I was over there in 2015, this is there again. If you guys wanted, I'd give you a copy of this video. It's actually on YouTube. But I found a little snake called a northern triangle spotted snake, which is not a particularly impressive snake. It's a foot long, maybe a little more. It's brown with a darker brown stripe, and it's got some triangle spots on its belly. And so I'd seen one once before in 2015, but in 2013. 2015, I caught one, and I took it back to photograph it better. And as I was trying to photograph it, it did this weird little kind of sideways twist thing, almost like a sidewinder does. And I'm like, man, that's a really cool behavior. I'm going to see if I can get that on video. And so I set him under a pot and let him get good and calm. And I suddenly lifted the pot. And instead of doing a little just twist, he actually almost flipped. And I'm like, wow, I need to get that on better video. So I went and I set up 3 or 4 cameras and came back and got my wife man in one. And I moved him over in the middle of the chicken yard where there was no grass so I wouldn't lose him, set him under a pot. And this time when I opened it up, he didn't just flip. He sprung end over end, if that makes sense. He somersaulted repeatedly for about 20 feet, hit a piece of roofing tin that my father-in-law had laid over there, then came somersaulting back at me 20 feet again. What? And I got it all on video. And I've never heard of that behavior among any snake at all. It flipped, it somersaulted end over end. And like I said, I got it on video. Later, I showed it to the national herpetologist for the Philippines. And he's like, yeah, I've never seen that behavior. And I need to write it up in as a short note in the Journal of Herpetology or something. Never got around to doing that. But anyway, I thought, okay, so that's where Bell Neck came from. It didn't really put its tail in its mouth, but boy, it sure looked like it could be rolling like a hoop, especially if you're running and not standing to look at it. So anyway, that was my theory. I thought, man, not only could I get a science article out of that, I could also get some article in some folklore journal, about, hey, here's where this legend came from. Until I did a little more research and found hoop snake legends in North America going way back to the mid-1700s. Man, that was such a great theory. Just shot in the ass by additional research. So the moral of the story is, once you got your good theory, just quit.
Just stop right there.
Yeah, no need for more research. You're liable to screw it up. But anyway.
So what are your thoughts on the Southern Illinois Mothman that are being seen over and over and over around the O'Hare Airport?
Well, that's not Southern Illinois. That's Chicago. We don't even consider, we resent the fact we're in that state. Man, I don't know. Most of those, and there again, I've never been there to witness it, or, to talk to witnesses or whatever. The whole Mothman thing and the, God, what was the one so early on that had the, floated along? I can't think of it. God, I can't think of the name of it. It was a really cool but one-off thing in, I want to think it's New York.
Are you talking about the one that hovered?
Yeah, the bottom was kind of just like a skirt that had a spade-shaped head and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can't think
what
of it.
Was the name of that?
I know. I can hear it and see it. Yeah. I did a show on it.
Okay. Well, that one, Mothman and stuff like that, man, I just have a really hard time with. That's kind of, to me, almost a step beyond the alien thing.
Yeah.
That's closer to being more demonic or whatever. I don't know.
It is weird.
It's a strange thing, though.
It's fueled over and over and over, and people are seeing it.
But, it's like the Chicago kangaroos. People are seeing them too, right? In the 1970s, you're familiar with that, right?
Yep.
and the Phantom Clowns. Lauren Coleman. His book has a whole section on both of those. So I don't know. It seems to be a thing for a while, and then it just fades out, and there's an awful lot of those.
Yeah. They kind of run their cycle, and that's it. Kind of like Black Eyed Kids for a long time.
Right. Yeah. And the whole Slender Man thing that was totally made up, but now people are claiming that, we actually saw Slender Man. Well, to me, that falls back to the whole thing like the Black Panthers,
Yeah.
Black Panthers didn't exist in North America till people became convinced that a panther was black. And then they start seeing them again. I don't know, Same deal with Slender Man, all that kind of creepy pasta stuff that people just make up.
Well, yeah, they make it up and then it takes a life of its own.
It takes a life of its own, yeah. So, me personally, I think it has something to do, they'd laugh me out of the Real Scientist Club for this, but I think it has something to do with just principles of chemistry and physics that we don't understand yet. And I think it even relates to stuff like, like I hadn't mentioned David's ghost picture to him in a year and several months. And then when I think about it and think I need it, boom, he pops up and, without being contacted and says, oh, I found that. What do you do with that?
Those little weird things.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a UFO, Tony?
If I had seen a UFO, I would probably attribute it to something that, was ours that was not classified yet. I've seen some weird flashing lights in the sky, but, they're just weird flashing lights in the sky. I have seen Earth lights once. That was, or what they typically call Earth lights. It was that was number 2 on my list for weird things. And of course it was in New Mexico. And it's not really a good story. It's me and a guy had been out driving on the back roads looking for rattlesnakes till about 2 a.m. And the Boy Scouts always had a, ghost tale, spook tale, whatever, about the blue lights of Uraka Mesa. And we had got back to base camp, and we were heading off to bed, and we were, like saying, okay, well, I'll see you in the morning or whatever. And he happened to be standing right in front of Uraka Mesa, and right by his head, this distinctly blue light just kind of is like an old flash bulb from the 70s. It flashed on and faded out. And my first thought was, man, those guys on staff up there do a hell of a job, because that was really blue and I could see it really good. And real quickly, I said, hey, man, there's a blue light right behind you, right at the, about halfway down Uraka Mesa. And so he and I, having nothing better to do, we sat there again till dawn, waiting for it to happen again. It never did. And I was like, if somebody's up there flashing a blue light for, to pump up the spook story, I would sure as hell do it more than once, So I don't know what you do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right though. Just some of these stories, and then getting back to what you're saying about not over researching, like the UFO thing, like you'd said, that if you saw one, you'd attribute it to something of one of ours. I wonder how often that truly happens,
that something truly bizarre and out of place just gets written off for that reason.
Yeah, because I remember years ago when this is back in probably the late 80s, people were talking about seeing this Batwing almost aircraft, in the skies, and it was a UFO, and people were going crazy. I remember
stealth
that.
Fighter.
It was a stealth bomber.
Yeah.
So
I actually saw one in New Mexico before it was declassified.
Yeah.
They're again talking about stuff like that. I'm sure you guys have probably read the Skinwalker Ranch stuff.
Oh God, yes.
I haven't really kept up with it, but way back when I read the book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker. And they talk about the thing that looked like a big full harvest moon, but something would come out of it, like it was a portal or whatever. 2003, I'm driving along New Mexico. At that time, I had a psycho ex-girlfriend. God, if there was a woo-woo psycho girl, man, I was attracted to her like a moth to a flame. Thank God for my current wife. But anyway, and she would, every couple of days, just like pick a fight for no real reason. I guess needed that emotional release. And so we're driving through southern New Mexico, and it's, I don't know, like 1 a.m, and she's fighting at me for something, and I just want to be quiet. I just want to drive. And I happen to look over, and there's some jagged, like, fault block mountains. And the harvest moon has just started to rise over them. And it was beautiful, this big orange moon over the mountains. And I'm like, hey, look how pretty the moon is. And she goes, that's not the moon, that's the moon. And she points the other way, and yeah, there's a crescent moon over there. And so here's this big orange something. And as I'm driving along, there's eventually another car is coming, and they're swerving all over the road. So I can tell that they're looking at it too.
Yeah.
And, I didn't even, we kept watching it the whole time it was in view, kept driving. Eventually the mountains covered it. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I love that he just said, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. And what do you do with that? I saw it.
Another moon, but
right. Right. What do you do with
if I'd
that?
have taken a picture of it, it'll look like a, street light seen at a distance or what. I don't know,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Strange, man. Strange. Weird oddities.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with that.
Not much you can do. Like you said, just strange things that you go, huh? That's odd.
Yeah, but
gotta move on.
What I'm not going to do if I'm an honest investigator is just blow it off because it doesn't fit what I understand the world to be.
Yeah. You kind of file that in the back of your head. You keep it as knowledge, and when it's relevant or when that puzzle piece is called upon, you have it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you try to fit it all into some kind of logical theory or whatever. Like my thing that this is, these are all related, just different facets of the same phenomena. But maybe that's not right. Maybe they're different facets of different phenomena. I don't know.
It's true.
Yeah.
So what's a maybe a funny Monster Quest story? Do you have any kind of funny things
Monster Quest
that
story
I don't know?
Well, I was trying to think of some of those. Nothing that's really that. Nothing jumps out at me that's really that great. Oh yeah, I can think. Well, I don't know. There's in that crocodile episode. There's a shot where the crocodile jumps up and it looks like it just eats the camera. Mm-hmm. That's because it did.
Oh.
And I don't know if that was your camera or not, but we had that camera, on a pole, and we're kind of like teasing this crocodile with it, and he jumps up, and the idea was he was supposed to jump up and just snap right in front of it. And no, he got the friggin' camera. It was a great shot, but we lost the camera.
That would have been my camera, Tony.
I don't know if you ever knew how that happened or even if it happened, but yeah, that happened.
I never heard that one.
Well, that does remind me of some of the, Monster Quest. I don't know. So many people just blew it off as it's the first of these reality shows that had all these spinoffs. But man, there was some stuff that, that you guys did for Monster Quest, like the footage of that giant squid coming up to the bait. That's the first time an adult giant squid had ever been filmed alive and uninjured that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Every other giant squid that we've ever seen was either dead or dying, There was one guy that finally, he caught a baby. When I say a baby, I'm talking like, an inch or two long. And it was a deal because he filmed the first live uninjured giant squid. But, that was the first adult giant squid that anybody ever filmed that wasn't either dead or dying. Oh,
yeah, it's true. Did you ever see the Predator? It's called Predators of the Deep. They did a whole 2-hour recent kind of a conglomerate. They took the two Monster Quest giant squid shows we did and then put them together.
Oh, no, I didn't.
They had new experts and new film, and yeah, it's worth watching. It's worth watching.
I knew that some more Monster Quest stuff had kind of come out, but it's all using old footage, right? They're not doing new stuff.
Right.
Man, I'm ready for them to do new stuff, and I want you to hire me. God, I miss that stuff. That was so much fun.
Yeah, we did.
God.
We did have a lot of.
So great.
Did do a lot of cool things, and nowadays seems to be a little less interest in the science end of it. So,
which is sad.
Yeah.
You know, ironically, Doug, we had actually pitched Monster Quest to the History Channel before you did.
Yeah.
One of the groups I was working with at the time, we called it Beyond Bigfoot.
Ah.
And it was the same, and got turned down. And a year later, here was Monster Quest, which, I think it's all a matter of timing, like when you catch the interest or whatever.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's timing. I tell people
it is all about timing. Well, Tony, do you have a website or anything you'd like to tell the audience about?
I do not.
Check your stuff out?
Not really. If anybody wants to see the flipping snake footage, that's on YouTube under Chad Arment has a website called Strange Ark, but it's under Strange Ark Field Notes. Although the buddy that put that together for me, he didn't use the best footage, I don't think, but it's still pretty, you can still see the snake flip. I just had some better footage of the snake flipping.
I'll be checking that out. It was a lot of fun talking to you, Tony. It really was.
Well, hey,
You're
I
a very
had fun
interesting
too,
guy.
guys.
You had a lot more strange going on than you realized until you got a hold of us.
Yeah, but it's all pretty much it's low strangeness, right?
Yeah,
it's not Mothman, it's not aliens. It's wet piles of sand in the desert.
And maybe the universe is working its way up to your high strangeness for you.
Oh, I'm okay with low strangeness,
Oh, well, we got to get out of here, Doug. End of another show. Boy, they just go so fast, don't they?
It's quick.
Till next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other. No matter how small the strangeness, remember, it is still strange.
Now through February 16th, join a clean and spacious Planet Fitness for zero enrollment and only $10 a month. With tons of equipment and free fitness training, it's the perfect place for everybody to work out.
Even me, Mr. I can't sleep at night, so I keep dozing off during the day.
Especially you, Snoozy. You'll rest easier and feel fit-tacular.
Wait, how did you get in here?
Join in club or at planetfitness.com. Zero enrollment, $10 a month, cancel anytime. Hurry, deal ends February 16th. See club for details.
CareerBuilder is made for people who have that thing. You know, those superpowers that make you good at your job, the skills you bring to work. And CareerBuilder knows those skills make you right for other jobs too. Higher paying jobs with benefits. Jobs you never thought of trying. Are you a people person? Work from home as a customer service rep? Are you organized and like driving? Become a delivery driver. You have the skills it takes, and CareerBuilder.com has the jobs to get you hired fast. Visit CareerBuilder.com.